Welcome back to another episode of the In the Paint Show, presented by Ballislife, episode 117. Here with my co-host Ani Umana. Ani, we're gonna jump right in it. It's been a whirlwind couple 24 hours. Obviously, some big news. We had the Super Bowl this past weekend, but we got a lot of things going on. So, welcome to the show again, and ready to get on it.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's been a big morning, big day. Been crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump right in it. The big news on the high school front is that the State Champions Invitational got announced. It's an event that's going to be run by Paragon Marketing. Basically a 14 tournament for boys and girls, meaning 4 boys, 4 girls. It's going to be held in the Tampa, Orlando area, April 7th through the 9th. Now, this event is a kind of a spinoff or a breakaway from Geico for teams that were, previously invited to that event. So Geico's going forward is just going to be for independent teams that are part of the NIBC, which we talk about a lot, high-level teams and other independent teams. Well, this event is going to be for state champions. You got to win your state championships from NHFS-approved, state associations. The ones they have so far, the ones they had at Geico: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, Utah, Washington, and Washington, D.C. Now, obviously, speaking to the event, the event facilitators, event creators, the people who got this going with Paragon Marketing, who works with ESPN, their goal is to get more associations on board and to get 8 teams next year. But we're here to talk about this year, April 7th through 9th in Florida. Ani, what's your high-take initial reaction to this event?
Man, I think it's much needed. I think it's much needed to have something separate to the Geico. The date is really goofy a little bit, but I think obviously the second day being towards that first April live period. But man, I like it. I think it's a new spin, and I'm interested to see what 4 teams they have this year and when it grows and having other associations involved.
Sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The event is obviously on a weekend, as you mentioned, and that's the big thing that people are talking about so far. Is it's on a live period weekend, right? 7th through the 9th is the event, and we wanted to talk about the live period as well a little bit this week. So the live periods for NCAA dates are April 8th through 10th, 22nd through 24th. That's the spring 2 live spring viewing periods. Then July 6th through 10th. And July 20 through 24. So 2 in July plus the scholastic events in June, which are various dates, various for various states. Again, those are also NFHS approved, state sanctioned. Some states have them, some states don't. Same thing with this event, the State Champions Invitational. Is some states are not on board. Some states have gone on board, been progressive about it. Like you said, it's good for high school basketball. But the thing is, obviously, it's not all 50 states. We want to get people to understand what it is. Right now, it's 4 states. And like you said, you got to think forward. If you want to do this, just like Geico when you started, Geico's better today than it was in 2009 when it started. There's more quality independent teams, more state associations allow, and they've grown that. So, but they've come to the realization, and like you said, it's probably a good call, and I'll give my spin on it, but I think it is a good call that the event is, to have more future state associations. To get it bigger, you're going to have to break away from Geico. So that it's forward thinking. And we wanted to get on our today's podcast, a special guest. We're going to bring on Grant Rice here from Bishop Gorman High School here in a minute. His team is undefeated. And as we mentioned at the top, you have to be a state champion. So you could be highly ranked, but if your team doesn't win a state championship, that it's a nil point. You got to win the state championship. So you could be a great team. If you lose in the final, semifinal, it happens. So again, for him, Nevada's been a part of Geico, so they'll be separate. So, it gives more states a more opportunity with seeing going forward. The strategy is to get more on board, and more would be, uh, you know, perhaps willing to come on board. Obviously, the goal is to get some. Are they going to get all 50 states, Ani, real fast? Obviously not. But the goal is to get some of the key major states. So I think Grant Rice from Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas has joined us. Let's bring him into the show. Grant, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am here. I can hear you guys. Thanks for having me, Ron.
Yeah, appreciate you jumping on, Grant. Obviously today, earlier today, the announcement of the event, the new event, the State Champions Invitational was made public. It's an event that you've kind of have a vested interest as your team is obviously part of the NIAA, and your team has gone to Geico National, which we'll talk about. But give me your highline reaction to today's announcement, Grant.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think it's been something that's been in the works or kind of talked about for the last year or two with Paragon and the Geico event. So I think it's exciting that they're finally able to to get the sponsorship and to make this happen. I think, like you said, Ronnie, I listened a little bit, and it just gives more high schools a chance to compete in postseason. After their own state championships, and we were able to compete in Geico a few years back, and had an amazing time, and that was great. But to open it up to high schools that compete for a state championship and to kind of have our own separate little event, I think is a good opportunity for us.
Yeah. Now, like you said, it's April 7th through 9th. It's going to be down in Florida, and as you mentioned, this is a good. And I know you're speaking of for other high schools. Obviously, your high school can compete with some of the top teams in the country. You're obviously 27-0 right now. You guys are ranked 11th in the Fab 50. You've been there, done that before. You've been ranked that high before. Obviously, you're undefeated, and you got to win a state championship to be part of this event. But do you feel that the sentiment around the country is that, hey, for a lot of state champions, they can go to an event like Geico, and they're not going to, let's be realistic, they're not going to get past the first round, or it's not going to be the experience they want after they just won a state title. Is that the kind of sentiment you got from talking to other coaches, or maybe knowing how other state associations work?
Yeah, I think there's advantages to both ways. Like I said, we went in 2019 and played La Lemure, who was undefeated, #1 in the country, and actually almost won that game. And it was an amazing experience for our kids. Couldn't have been more of a first-class event. And just because we lost, we still were able to enjoy the event the next 2 days and watch some games and tour New York City with the kids. But in reality, even if we would have won that first game, for a high school that competes for a state championship, to compete with some of the national schools and win 3 games in a row, it would be quite a challenge. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. And there have been some special teams along the years,
Sure.
Back in the day. But I just think this is a great opportunity for high schools. And I don't know what the word is. I don't know what we call ourselves, but for high schools to compete for a state championship, for traditional schools, to go out there and have their own championship. And I'd be okay either way. This year, obviously, we're having some success, and we still have to win the playoffs, and we still have some tough games ahead of us. So, if we were the number 8 seed or number 7 or 6 in the regular Geico event, we'd gladly go and compete and have a good time and give it our best. But to be honest, as high school coaches, I think most high school coaches are really excited about this, and we look forward to the opportunity, and we're hoping maybe it can expand to eight boys teams and 8 girls teams in the future. I think that's probably the hope for everybody.
Go ahead, Ani.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with Coach. I mean, just a platform, especially for those high school teams that win a state title, and then actually have an event for them to play in, and then against other state champions. Obviously, in the Geico, having the potential to play like a Montverde, Sunrise, like back to back, and then having to win a title. Compared to this is, like I said, I think it's just a new spin. I think it's need a spin, and I'm in agreement with both you guys. I'm liking it. Obviously, like we're going to talk about the date later, but I think it's what's needed, and I think going forward, you're going to add more state, everything be in a good place.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Coach, let's talk a little bit about um, like you said, the competing part, and like you said, you guys are in the chance to win Geico. You feel going in you can win. You almost beat Lalamere. We were obviously in New York when you went in 219. But talk a little bit about no state champion has won Geico so far. So was that a kind of motivation for you guys going into that 219? Hey, look, we're a state champ. We're playing the #1 team in the country. They got probably the best player in the country in Isaiah Stewart. Was that a motivation like, yo, let's represent our state and represent state champions? Or was it just like, hey, we're going to try to win all 3 games and what was the thinking going in?
Yeah, that year it was interesting because we had played Lalamere earlier in the season out at the cancer research event, and
Okay.
we lost that game, but we were in the game. So when we saw that we were the 8 and they were the 1, and we figured that would be the case. We thought we had a real good chance.
Okay.
Were the odds against us? Of course. Were they the favorites? Yes, but I wouldn't have been surprised if you told me we were going to win that game. But once again, we would have had 2 more tough games after that. So could we have won it? Yes, we could have gotten hot and done it, but it would have been tough 3 days in a row competing against some of those teams. But we had an amazing experience. We took it 1 game at a time, just like we are right now in our state playoffs. We're not thinking about Geico. I definitely am excited to be on your show and talk a little bit about it. So, but we got a ways to go. But whether it's Bishop Gorman or teams from other states competing in this high school event, the 4-team event, I think in the long run this is really good for the expansion of high school sports, and not just with the boys, but we're talking about giving girls more opportunities to play and to get exposure and to play as a team in a big setting, possibly on ESPN. So I think we have to look at the big picture in this whole thing that Paragon's brought to us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, you got to think forward thinking. Obviously, Geico wasn't, as I said at the top of the show, Geico wasn't what it is now the first year. So this event is not going to be what it is in maybe 10 years. That's the thinking. So, obviously we got to ask you about your team, especially your team, because if you have 4 teams, the event starts on the 7th. So for 4 teams, 2 of them are going to be done by the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
The live period starts the 8th. Well, if you're a senior-oriented team, it's not going to matter too much, maybe for a couple guys on your bench. But if you're an underclass-oriented team like Bishop Gorman is this year, if you guys go far, if you go to the 3rd day, obviously the first day is in a dead period, but the last 2 days are in a live period. What's your thought about that? And, what are you going to tell your guys, and what are you going to, how are you going to navigate that when the time comes, if you do win your state championship?
Sure. No, and that's a great question. And obviously this first year, the timing of the weekend is not ideal. We wish it was, most people probably wish it was a different weekend, including probably, Paragon, but it is what it is. And the fact that it's just going to be 4 teams and it's 1 live event out of, I know there's only 4 between April and July, but, the top level kids, and I do have, some really good young guys that are exposed, getting exposure. 2 of our sophomores are ranked in the top 50 by Rivals. We've got a freshman who will be a top 20 kid. So, the bottom line is these kids are going to get exposure whether they're playing with their AAU team or they're playing with Bishop Gorman and the Geico. So I don't really see a difference. Yes, the AAU promoters probably aren't too happy about this, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about 2 teams. 2 teams. There's 4 teams. 2 of them are going to lose on Thursday. 2 of them will play Saturday. So 2 teams, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids are not going to get to play with their AAU team for 1 event. So, I think everyone's going to be okay doing that. There's going to be other times where they're getting seen with their high school teams. It's going to be broadcast on ESPN. We do have game film, obviously, that we can send to 100 college coaches if these kids play well. We're talking high school basketball, which, no offense to any programs out there, AAU, everything, but, we've been doing this for a long time, and I think I think the kids will get exposure from playing in Geico that weekend, if they get the opportunity to do it. So I haven't discussed it with my team at all because, once again, we don't know if we didn't know this was coming exactly. We had heard rumblings, but we didn't know for sure the facts. But, we'll talk about it a little bit just in case, we win the state championship. But, I would expect my team to all be excited about, competing for a national, whatever you call it, a national championship on the high school level.
Like a national skill.
If we get that opportunity in April. And once again, we're just talking about, 1 weekend out of how many weekends can can they get exposure, whether it's with their high school team or with their AAU team? So
Sure.
You made a good point with that. These kids have been getting exposure all through the school season. I mean,
yeah, I mean, right. I mean, if you look at, just we have a great, my assistant coach, Rich Thornton, does all our Gorman Instagram and hoops. And I mean, the things that these college coaches can see just by looking at the highlights of these kids on our, on our Instagram and Twitter and things like that is pretty unbelievable. It's not like 10 years ago where you kind of had, people had to come see you in person.
Sure.
It's really, the whole world is a lot different. So, I mean, you can get exposure if you're playing up in, Alaska or something, wherever. So,
Correct.
I just think there's definitely, it's not the ideal weekend. I think everyone agrees with that, but I think the positives far outweigh, any kind of small little negative that is the, scenario or narrative that's out there.
Sure. And doesn't mean that it will always be on a live weekend. We don't know that going forward.
Right.
It's to get it off the ground this year. So, yeah, let's talk about your team, because obviously, like you said, you have a bunch of underclassmen. You guys are ranked number 11 in the Fab 50. You guys are now 27-0. The playoffs started earlier this week. Obviously, we're shooting this pod on a Tuesday. You guys played on a Monday night. So when people are listening to this, it might be Tuesday evening or Wednesday, and you'll have another game later in the week. So talk about Monday night's victory. Talk about being 27-0. And like you said, you got to focus on winning this state. And there's a couple of tough games coming up.
Yeah, definitely. We're in the playoffs. The way Nevada does it, once we get started, there's no breaks at all. We play Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week, all in the playoffs. We had a tough game against Foothill. Foothill High School actually gave us a really good game. They competed, and we got through that. And then, Wednesday night we play against Coronado in the second round of the Las Vegas championships. And, we know Coronado has, as much talent as anyone, on the West Coast. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for us. I'm proud of our kids. I knew we had a pretty good team going into the year, but you never expect to be undefeated at this point just because of the schedule we play and the tournaments that, we compete in and the events. So we've been fortunate. We've definitely had some close games, a few overtimes, but, our guys have showed composure when the game's been on the line, and just really proud of our team. We've got some good senior leadership and then some really good young guys. So it's been a really good mix. It's kind of one of those things where, each game we're getting different contributions from different guys, whether it's, one of our younger guys, underclassmen, going out and scoring 20 or grabbing 10 rebounds or, 7 assists, or one of our seniors who's leading us. So it's been a great experience. It's actually, we missed all season last year with COVID. We were maybe the only state, one of the only few states that didn't have a season. So I'm just really proud of these kids that they've, responded and done what they're doing.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of kids and we'll let you go. You mentioned the freshman, Chris Newuli, who's now, he started some games. He didn't start the beginning, but I know he started some game. You guys won the host event that you won in the Tarkanian. You won some other big events. And obviously Coronado with Texas Tech bound Pop Isaacs and Cyrus Grady. That's a good team you guys got coming up. So talk a little bit about the young guys, and then talk a little bit about how you can get by Coronado on Wednesday evening.
Definitely. Well, yeah, Chris Newuli, you talked about, a freshman, just turned 15 years old a couple weeks ago. And he has moved into our starting lineup. And he just, he produces, he defends, he rebounds, he scores the ball, and just gives us a toughness. I've had some pretty good freshmen over the years, but, he's as tough as any kid we've had at that, at that age. So then we got, three really good sophomores who are contributing quite a bit. Ryder Elizaldes, sophomore guard, Jace Richardson, our starting point guard, and then John Mobley Jr., Junie Mobley, who's our starting two guard. And those guys have really given us just a ton all year. And, last night we've gotten different contributions from different guys, but Junie Mobley led us in scoring. He had 25 last night. And then Jace Richardson had about 15 points, 6 assists and 3 steals. And, Jace has really been playing well. As a sophomore point guard at a high level of basketball, you never know, how they're going to respond. I mean, we knew Jace was talented, but as the season's gone along, I mean, he's just been everything we wanted him to be. And, we don't really even consider, any of those guys sophomores anymore, because they've gotten a full, even though they missed their freshman year, which was tough. So I think they were a little behind just because they missed their freshman year, just in game experience, not in talent. But, we've put 27 games together, and those guys have really turned it on. They really have. And then, our junior class is solid. We've got Eli Bradley, who comes off the bench and one of the best shooters, on the West Coast for us, comes in and is an instant threat. And then Keenan Bay, who has started some games but comes off the bench. Honestly, one of the best defenders I've ever had at Bishop Gorman. He's about 6'7", but he can defend, 1 through 5, and just does a heck of a job. And then our seniors who have been steady all year, James Freeman, who is our four-man, who has started most of the year and still may start some for us, but comes in, gives us energy, very athletic, plays good defense, rebounds the ball, high flyer. And then our two senior captains, our two senior leaders, Ryan Abelman, who's going to Northern Arizona, has always been known as a shooter, but he's really expanded his game. He can dribble the ball, he can get to the basket, and he's really defending really well too. He's 6'4", so with his size, he's done a good job on guards. And then our last senior, Darian Williams, who is really finally starting to get a lot of notice from college coaches. Ronnie, you and I have been talking about it for a long time, how what he brings to the table, and he's been steady all year, averaging about 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists, and he just wins games, So it's been a great mix. Obviously we like any team, we have our little things we have to address, and our team meetings and our issues and things like that. But all in all, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great season, and we want to keep it going. But no matter what happens, I'm really fortunate and proud of these guys.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, regardless of what happens, if you guys win state and go to the Champions Invitational, it'll be a great experience. If you don't, you still want to see the event going forward, I'm sure.
Definitely, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we appreciate it, Grant. We know you're busy, and we know you guys got to get ready for tomorrow's Wednesday's game with Coronado. So we'll let you go.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Okay. Well, Ani, you see there, Grant kind of thinks about the bigger picture with the event. I mean, he's being modest. He don't want to be super cocky. I mean, he thinks his team's going to win state and potentially qualify for this event.
100%.
Yeah. Well, what do you think there? I mean, again, to reiterate our point at the top of the show, you got to win state. It don't matter how good you are, where you're ranked, or anything like that. You got to win state.
Yeah. No, I like that requirement. I think it'd be in the Fab 50 top 5, right?
Sure.
And in a situation where they lose the state title game, or they don't make it to state, that they're not qualified in it. I think for teams that really want to get in this, which I think there's going to be a lot of teams, it is going to put not the pressure, but just like the emphasis of winning a state title even more. I like the idea. It's different. I mean, it's not just based off rankings. It's based off you got to win. Like you have to win your state championship. And like I said, it just I love the concept, love the idea. And I think for teams that, like Coach, I mean, like you said, he's being modest, he's being nice, he want to get in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he wants to experience it. And again, he's going to talk to his teams. Obviously, they have a lot of grassroots / travel ball options. So they're definitely going to talk about that. Like you said, it's not ideal. Again, 7th through the 9th, it'll be on TV, so people will watch it. Again, if you're a college coach and one of Gorman's guys or one of those 4 teams guys is your top guy, you're gonna watch that game. You're gonna take an hour out of your break and watch that game 100%. If that's your top guy. You know what I mean?
Top guy, you're probably gonna be there.
if they can get sanctioned. If they're not, it's okay.
Yeah.
If they're not sanctioned, which they probably won't be, but still, you're gonna watch the game. Because it's a win-win. You go watch somebody in a gym somewhere at Nike, YBL, or Adidas, or Under Armour, or the Independence. You say, okay, I'm gonna put on my phone right here and watch my top guy.
Right.
Ain't no coach gonna not go for that. That's obvious. So, yeah, again, we wanted to talk about that event as much as possible, and that's been and will be the focus of the show. Hopefully, we'll have Rashid Ghazi, who's the president of Paragon, who's kind of facilitated this event and is pushing this event forward next week. He will want to come on. We want him on to talk a little bit more about how he came to this event and what was this decision to separate Geico's Nationals from this new event, and this new event, the State Champions Invitational, like we said, is going to be not on the same weekend of Geico, the weekend after. So like we know, Geico's is always the Final Four weekend, and then this event is the following weekend. Again, it's something new. Grassroots coaches don't want their space intruded on, so that's a legitimate concern. So I'm sure, like I mentioned a minute ago, you've heard about this, got a wind of it in the last 24 hours. Now your phone's blowing up, your contacts are blowing up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was
what, from your perspective in the state of Texas, because Texas is a huge stronghold in terms of recruiting and the grassroots scene, what is the initial reaction out there, and what are grassroots individuals who either run events or involved saying about this so far?
the initial reaction is that they don't want to be intruded upon, right? Like,
Sure.
they feel that they give the high school coaches their space, and they want to have their own space.
Sure.
You got it. It's like a mixed bag. You got guys that are like, I don't know about this. You got guys that are, actually excited that, for Texas is not one of the states right now.
Sure.
Potentially getting in. Like, I'd love to see a Duncanville or a Richardson,
Yeah.
like in a situation like this. So, it's a mixed bag. Obviously, you get invited to that. That's another month that you don't have your guys, like in Texas. If Texas were to be added in, right? Like, and
Sure.
at some point they are, right? You got the Icebreaker, War Before the Storm by Von Zell, like Jim Hicks
Okay.
stuff. These grassroots, there's gonna be guys that play in these things, obviously in a lot of period, which whatever. But like they do feel like it will intrude upon their space some. But I think overall, the kids are gonna still be able to play. Like even if they have to miss a weekend, it is what it is. Summer basketball, they play 3 weekends out the
Yeah.
out the month anyways. You're gonna have for the most part. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. I mean, you got guys that are like, man, what the hell's going on, and blah blah blah. And you got some guys that are like, oh, this would be cool. Like, I hope we can get a Duncanville and Richardson, because that's kind of the complaint here about Geico was like, will we ever see a Duncanville or Richardson or whoever, like one of these top public schools in a city? Or
Yeah. Yeah. If we ever see them in a Duncanville or a Richardson, I think Ani's having a little bit of technical issues, but yeah, that's then one of the notions of this event is the fact that a Duncanville or a Richardson hasn't been in Geico, and doesn't seem like they're getting in especially in recent years. So this increases the chances that they do get in down the line if you think forward. So my question to you is, Ani, is because Duncanville and Richardson and Kimball and Beaumont United, they could all play uh Link or Sunrise if they want. They're able to schedule them. They're sanctioning through UILs, able to schedule them. So does that just make this more attractive? Like, yo, we can play Montverde in the regular season if we're good enough, and we can go try to win the State Champions Invitational. Or do you think that they wanted to kind of test themselves against those teams that are going to now play in Geico?
I think now this it's like it's like a mixture of both. I mean, you got guys that play, like, Duncanville played Montverde and won. So,
Sure.
so Duncanville, especially with the team they have this year, they feel like they can go to Geico and win it. Right.
Correct.
So like for most years, I would say that they probably, this gives their allure is to the
Yeah.
state, to the state deal. But like when you have a team that could really compete with any of these teams in the country, like I think Duncanville, honestly, out of all the public schools in Texas, is the one capable of 3-day stretch. If they had to play La Lumiere, they had to play Montverde, then Sunrise, they're able to handle it and win.
Sure.
But I think the other teams that have really good teams that are top 20, top, in the 20s to the 50s in the country, I think the state championship, this is something they really want to get to.
Yeah.
Now, some of these coaches, I'll say this, like, after state title, they're already wearing the hell out. So, like,
Correct.
they got to go a whole month, an extra month. That is a beast for them. But
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up. Again, every state title's and every state championship is different. I got to talk about this a little bit because you brought up a great point. Every state championship around the country, let's just say 50 for argument's sake. Obviously, there's some independents. There's some that are separated parochial and some separated public. There's 50 states. They don't end on the same weekend. CIF in California ends March 11th, March 12th. What weekend is UIL finishing on?
That's that. It's like that a second weekend. I think it's like the 7th. It's around that 7th, 8th, 9th area around that time.
Okay.
So yeah, so like a little bit before.
The weekend before would be the weekend before CIF, maybe the 6th, 7th, whatever weekend that is.
Correct.
So again, we got a month off. So every state's different. Some, like Grant Rice said, our guest, they go fast. They don't screw around in Nevada. They get done with it. They don't have a bunch of rounds, so they're going to be done in February. So that's a thing other states got to consider. They're going to have to practice, keep together, keep loose. That's a big consideration. So not every state finishes at the same time.
Right.
So we talked about the live period being that weekend, the 8th through the 10th. This event would be advantageous if they went earlier because a lot of states finish earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So some finish first weekend of March, some finish last weekend of February. Some Arizona's done in February. There's other states that are done in February. So there is going to be some caveats here. Again, like Mike Bibby's team at Shadow Mountain, they went to Geico and they were very competitive with our guy, with our guy Jalen House and Black Shear. Those guys can defend anybody and play with anybody, but they had a big break off.
Yeah.
Right. So again, other teams are going to have a big break off. So that's another consideration for Paragon and this event going forward. And Grant Rice has been through it because he's been through Geico before, but not every state has, and not every state champion has. So of the ones that are eligible, and I wanted to go over the eligible states one more time in case people missed it. Again, we're not at a March Madness yet. I want people to remember we're not at 50 states yet. We're starting with 4. We'll see where it goes from there. Obviously, the goal in 2023 is to get 8 boys, 8 girls. But let's go over those states again real quick, Ani. I don't want people to miss them. Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, Utah, Washington, and Washington, D.C. Now, the goal is to get more on board. So, I knew that this was kind of coming eventually. I didn't know if it was coming this year or the following, 223 or 224. Seems like a natural progression. I have written about this on ballislife.com. So make sure you go to ballislife.com. Check out my commentary about it. Obviously, I do the national rankings. I've been doing them for 20 years with some of my guys, Mark Tennis and Doug Huff. I give a shout out to them. They taught me a lot about how to do national rankings and putting it together. So on my end, and then this is more speaking of rankings and things like that, to get more state championships in the fold, they had to do this. Right. To get other states on board, it's going to be more attractive. Again, will the dates be attractive? Will the timing? That all has to be worked out. Right. That's not out of our control. We're just going to follow it and rank the teams as we see it. Like you said, if you lose, you drop. That's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think because the independent programs, Ani, it's really been showing this year. The independent programs are adding and dropping players during the season.
Yeah.
I think that's
middle here.
The middle of December, late December, January. Like most state associations are going to be like, okay, wait a minute. Are we on the same playing field as these guys? So they're not going to do that. They're not going to be progressive or be in line and be like, we're not going to prove that. Especially if it doesn't, let's be honest, it doesn't help their bottom line. It doesn't help their pockets. What are they going to do it for?
Right.
State associations are many. They want to turn a profit and pay their payroll and pay their salaries, just like Ballislife does. Right. We want to get paid.
Right.
So everybody wants to get paid. So that's just the way of life. Grassroots coaches don't want their space invaded on. And as you know, Ani, as your phone's blowing up today, you know that's a concern. It's a concern. Yeah, it's concern for what I got going on, you know. But I'm talking about ranking the team. So and getting more and more and more kids opportunities, like Grant Rice said. You get more and more kids opportunities, you know, that's a good thing, you know, whether it's the grassroots space or the high school space. Right. So you know, for us, this end of season tournament, these are 2 end of season tournaments, right? One for full members, one for independents. Doesn't change the way we do the Fab 50. We're still going to determine the number 1 team and the next 49 of them after the state championship invitational, after the 7th through 9th. You know, again, the reason is each state set has its own set of rules. The rules for eligibility and sanctioning are not uniform, Ani, as we know across the country.
Right.
Duncanville and other UIL teams can play Montverde. CIF and Sierra Canyon can't. That's where the states are not on board. They're part of the NFHS, but the NFHS recommends and has guidelines. The NFHS doesn't really enforce rules. That's up to the states, each state to enforce the rule, which we've talked about on previous pods on this show. Is
right.
You know, there's all kind of eligibility rules, which even Duncanville has dealt with this year with the UIL. So we've talked about that. So, you know, some states across the country, they can play independents, they can play NIBC schools, they can even play schools that don't have a campus. You know, some schools, some state associations in Ohio, they can play SoCal Academy. They can play teams that are prolific, that are associated with another educational institution, whether it's online or school. Some states are very strict without that, but they still play each other. So until those states completely stop playing each other, those 2 groups, the states stop playing the independents, I have no reason to separate the rankings because they're still playing each other during the regular season.
Right.
It's not all 50 states, but it's still plenty of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it gets to the point where none of them are playing each other, they have no sanctioning, they're completely separate, like a separation of church and state, I call it, then I'll have to have most likely have to have 2 polls because there won't be any common opponents. There won't be a way to rank them.
Right.
And Ani, to be honest, people still going to want to know who's better, the Geico runner-up or the state champion runner-up. Who's better, the Geico champ or the State Champions Invitational champ? Oh, well, we finished second at Geico. I think we're still better than the team that won that high school thing. See, so they're still going to look to the rankings to say there's still got to be an order for all the teams.
Right.
So it don't, you know, we keep chugging along. That's the great thing about it. Like, we keep chugging along. People are still going to want to know where their team's ranked.
Right. 100%.
So that's great. So I don't know. Do you have any other thought to add? You know, ask me about this event, or do you have any other final thoughts about this event?
Yeah, that was it would be interesting. Like you said, the runner-up in Geico and the runner-up in the state championship. Like, which is weighted more? Like, which one would you weight more? Like, like that would be my point. Like, which one would you weight more?
Yeah, because again, that's depending on their schedule. Any head-to-heads during the regular season, some states are not allowed to. You know, they can't play independent, so they don't get very high. That's the thing about the NIBC schools and Link Academy and some of those schools that are highly ranked that we talk about pretty much every week is they some of them don't get a chance to play, you know, independent. So when they lose, Ani, they tumble down. I'll be honest, they drop in the rankings, you know, as you see them. And I mean, as you see them each week and as we compile them, they fall in those rankings, you know, pretty far. So, you know, the teams that play the tough schedules are still going to get rewarded in the rankings, right?
Right.
But again, that winning that event, if there's 4 good teams, you know, and you knock off a Gorman or some, you're going to move up. So it's still going to be based on your whole season results. Like we said, let's look at the Fab 50 real quick, and we'll talk about Sunrise because they're the number one team. And last week we talked a little bit about Sunrise and Link.
And I was wrong. My prediction was wrong.
And you went with Link and I went with Sunrise. Again, we just put each other on the spot, but that was fun. And we'll do that a little more with Geico in some of these events, no problem. But Sunrise got a loss. Duncanville has a loss. Montverde has 4 losses. Link Academy now has a loss to Sunrise, as we talked about. Centennial has a loss to Duncanville, number 5. IMG has 4 losses. 2 to Sunrise, split with Oak Hill, and lost to La Lumiere. Richardson has a loss to North Little Rock, number 14. La Lumiere has 4 losses. Oak Hill has 7 losses, and they're number 9. So then we get to Calvary Christian Academy. That's the team I kind of want to talk about a little bit because I know they think Calvary Christian would like to get in Geico and potentially beat some of those teams in front of them. Right. Well, this year they're going to have to go to the state, the invitational tournament, the state champions, and they're going to have that. Let's just say they win their division in Florida. Mm-hmm. They're going to get an invite. Let's say Gorman wins their division in Nevada, 4A. They're going to get an invite. I guess they got to get by Coronado on Wednesday as you listen to this pod, and they'll have a game Friday. But that's the one team that kind of probably like, dang, I wish we could get in Geico this year. Let's go to Invitational next year. Marvell Allen and those guys, that's a really good team. But again, they have 2 losses, kind of that stinker to Milton and to Montverde, who's number 3. So the common denominator in all this is all those teams have losses, Ani. The first team that doesn't have a loss is Bishop Gorman, 27-0. So again, like you said, if they go to Geico and lose, they fall a little bit. But you look at a team like down a little further, Centerville, Ohio, 22-0, number 16 with Gabe Cups.
Yeah.
Brentwood Academy in Tennessee at number 24 this week. Let's just say hypothetically they went to the Champions Invitational. If they took a loss, they're going to go down. Or if they take a loss in these playoffs, they're going to go down. So that's the main difference between those top teams. They don't really drop too much when they lose when they're playing these high-level schools compared to some of these state association teams. They're liable to drop quite a bit if they lose. And that's why Link Academy didn't drop this week. So let's talk a little bit about that game, Ani, as we switch gears and we close up this pod. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. So 74-65. Were you kind of able to follow that? Were you able to watch the stream on that game?
Yeah, I was. The camera sometimes was a little goofy, but
yeah.
Yeah. but I was able to follow. I'm being modest, but I was able to follow it.
Yeah. Cameraman needed a little work. Hey, shout out to the high school kids that are running them cameras out there. They do a good. Hey, they're not getting paid the big bucks, So
no, they're not. I thought it was a good game.
Sure.
I thought Trey Green really came after it. I thought Layden, Grady Dick, Mark Mitchell was a beast. I really like Terrence Reed. His game has really grown. It was hitting some jumpers using his size. Jordan Walsh. Sure. Man, Sunrise is just such a tough team to beat. Like, and you said it, like they've been here before.
Yeah.
Right. So when Link made the run, Sunrise was like, it is what it is. Like, we ain't worried about it. They knew what to do. They made their adjustments and they took care of business. It's like you could just tell, like, when in the NBA people say playoff experience, and sometimes people are like, playoff experience is overrated. Well,
sure.
Experience
took over. Experience matters. Yeah, for sure. It's like you said, NIBC experience or experience at a high level. You know what I mean? Playing against high level teams. And it's not like Link hasn't, but Sunrise number 1 team in the country for a reason, right? And that I thought maybe that might be the difference. It was 21-13, so they got out to a good start. Then it got sloppy, and that's why I was kind of worried that Link. I didn't want them to get a little too excited. They kind of threw a couple alley-oops that were off in the third quarter. They kind of missed their mark on a couple shots that they should have made. A couple offensive rebounds that they allowed Sunrise to grab, and then also on the other end that they didn't finish on some of their offensive rebounds. A little sloppy there in the third quarter, but they were only down 48-44 entering the fourth. And then Layden Blocker made some key plays, and as you mentioned, Grady Dick hit some key jumpers and that 3-pointer. And they just have, like you said, they're a little bit more. They were a little bit more executed, a little better, a little more calm down the stretch.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good. I think Link, will probably get invited to Geico, and
Correct.
so this is a good learning experience for them.
Yeah.
It's hard. I know. Didn't they end up beating Wasatch
The next day? Yeah.
next day? So I think it's a good learning experience for them. But Sunrise just showed you why they're number one in the country. I mean, they just.
Yeah.
They executed, like you said. Link missed shots that they normally should make, gave up offensive rebounds, were sloppy, and although only down by 4 in the fourth, once Sunrise kind of cleaned it up, they started kind of making that run. And I think that's a learning experience for those Link players. Like, every possession matters.
Yeah, for sure. Every possession is going to matter for them at Geico, and I'm sure we're going to see them at Geico. Geico's the March 31st starting Final Four weekend. And, that's 1 week before the new event that will be April 7th through 9th. And we kind of beat that over the head. We want people to know and follow it. That's what our podcast is about. People want to know about high school basketball. So there it is. And again, I'm sure you're going to get more phone calls and people talking to you about this new event. And
I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb.
You're going to have to put your phone on Do Not Disturb today because you've already been disturbed.
Right.
For the last 24 hours. So, it's a great thing that high school basketball gets attention, whether and more kids get attention. That's always a good thing. And that's what I want to reiterate is may not be perfect. Again, when Geico came out, it wasn't. Everybody didn't think it was all that, and it still needs work. It always can get better. Just like this pod can get better, my rankings can get better. Whatever we do, try to get better. But that was I'm not sure how Sunrise is going to play. I mean, Sunrise they're about playing to their maximum. So shout out to Coach Luke Barnwell. He's doing a hell of a job with that group. If you think you lost Kendall Brown and you lost the point guard, Kennedy Chandler, and a few other guys, I still started them number 3 because I just figured he's going to reload and he knows what to do now. Like you said, that experience year after year of having elite players and kind of having to reload, he's at to the point where that team lost 4 starters and lost almost all its contributors, and now it's number 1 in the country. So kudos to Coach Barnwell and Sunrise Christian. Let's shift gears completely as we close that this segment of the State Championship Invitational getting announced. I'm sure people are going to talk about it all week as they watch this pod and listen to this pod. Thanks people for listening on Megaphone, on Spotify, wherever they get their podcasts. Also, thanks for watching the YouTube. We want to try to keep growing that. I know, Ani, you want to grow that. You like the YouTube version. So
I love all our versions. I love the YouTube version. I love that our numbers just continue to grow. I want to keep growing. I think we got some great information. But for sure. I think we're good on camera.
Okay. Yeah, you like the camera. So you got the good background. My background's not as spiffy as yours, but you got you definitely like the YouTube version. So thanks for subscribing to the Ballislife Podcast Network. You can subscribe to the audio version. Go to ballislife.com for more information. Each week, the Fab 50 for more information on the State Champions Invitational. I put a story on ballislife.com when it came out. The announcement came out this morning, which is Tuesday morning. As you listen to this, it'll be Tuesday evening or later in the week. But that you'll get more information about that new event on our website, ballislife.com. Also wanted to let people know, we still got the promotion through our podcast at shop.ballislife.com. In the paint, 15% off by listening to this podcast. Put in the code for the discount, one-time use discount code. It's PAINT15. The numbers PAINT15, 15% off, free shipping in US, tees, shorts, backpack, basketballs, and more. So, Ani, let's transition to our topic that we wanted to kind of hit this week because it was the Super Bowl weekend. Then this, obviously this announcement came on. We had to jump right on that with Grant Rice. So we appreciate Grant Rice jumping on. LA Rams beat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. What's your take on that Super Bowl? I want to hear your spin. I know you got a lot of opinions about that Super Bowl.
Oh man, I at first I thought Rams were going to run away with it, and early it was
Sure.
13-3.
Yeah,
And Odell was working. Cooper Kupp, I mean, it had no answer for him. The defense for the Rams were working. I was going for the Bengals because I like Joe Burrows.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite quarterback in the league right now. But they made the run. Odell unfortunately got hurt, and then Bengals started getting some offense. Kind of like you said, like the Lincoln Sunrise game. The game got sloppy.
The game got sloppy. Yeah.
And, it was boring. I think I probably took like a 5-minute nap. Not even gonna lie. Within like, and then I remember I was with my girlfriend, and I said, "Hey, just let me know when it's 2 minutes left."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think your girlfriend probably wanted to hang out with you to watch the halftime show. I can't imagine she wanted to hang out with you just to watch the game. She wanted to watch the halftime show.
She did. She loves football, but the half
she
she's
loves
a big
Mary.
halftime.
Yeah. She loves Mary J more than she loves football.
Oh, 100%.
So let's be honest. Were you how interested you were in the game? Well, you like Joe Burrow. I know you love Joe Shiesty, but how interested were you in the halftime show compared to the game?
Oh man, the halftime show, you couldn't beat that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was you had Dr. Dre, Snoop doing the crib walk.
On
50
national
Cent,
TV, yeah.
right.
On the biggest stage of national TV. Yeah.
Right. 50 Cent hanging upside down. Kendrick, Eminem, Mary J. I mean, it was fun. It was a really good halftime show. I was more interested in the game because I knew it was going to go down the wire. But the halftime show, I mean, that was in mine. Like the most memorable one was for me. Prior to that was the Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson one.
Oh boy, yeah. the Nipplegate. Oh boy,
Nipplegate. There you go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So in this one, I would still say I like this one because again, personally, to be honest, 100%, I thought this show was 10 or 15 years a little too late. This show could have been done 10 years ago.
I agree.
Everything they saw, I thought America's ready for it. America's ready to embrace. Now Snoop is everybody's uncle now. He's the country's uncle. Everybody loves Snoop. That's crazy.
Right.
It wasn't like that when he first came out. You know, what is Death Row? These guys are gangsters. What is this LA gangster stuff? The country started embracing it slowly. Obviously, I'm from LA, so I think people want to be gangsters almost everywhere now. When I go places, I'm like a bunch of wannabes, But it's a serious thing, and I thought, man, look how mainstream Snoop has become. I mean, I'm glad he learned a lot because he wasn't making that much money on Death Row initially in his first stint, and he didn't like his contractual obligations, and that's you learn as a young man. Obviously, I would give out a shot to Master P. He learned a lot about the business when he went to No Limit. Again, he wasn't making a lot of money, but now look at it 20 years later, 25 years later, he owns the rights to Death Row. He owns the brand. So that's a big, like, again, the same thing we're talking about with Geico and this State Invitational. Like, it's about the future. It's not about, right now. It's where it's going to be in 10 or 15 years. And I think the same thing with, I'm glad to see Snoop as an LA guy, and he's obviously from Long Beach, but to see him kind of prosper and for rap to get its proper stage, I thought that was good. Tams, everybody's talking about the Tam sign. Everybody likes to eat Tams burgers when they go to LA. I don't know what's better, Luther's barbecue in Texas. What's the best barbecue in Texas? Which one do you got to go? What's the go-to, Ani? When you're in Houston or Dallas, what barbecue do you got to go to?
I go to Luther's.
Okay, you go to Luther's.
Okay.
I like Luther's. I went to the 2006 All-Star game in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
2006 All-Star game in Houston. I was like, everybody's like, go to Luther's, go to Luther's. I'm like, damn, Luther's is
Luther's popping.
It was popping then. I don't know if it's popping now, but it was popping then.
It's still it adds up, but Luther's. I mean,
Luther's is branded like McDonald's. Yeah.
It's a classic. Like
Yeah. So dang, that was a long time ago, over 15 years ago. But yeah, that 2006 All-Star game, I was there on Westheimer having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And And I remember Luther, so I thought about that when I saw Tams. I was like, Tams is a great hamburger stand. I think there's one on Central and Rosecrans, and there's one on Florence coming in from Huntington Park. So anyway, that was a great little skit and great little prop. I thought, I thought they could have used the cars more. I thought maybe again, they only have so much time, but I thought the cars could have rolled in. The Impalas and stuff were already in place, and the guys were kind of standing on them. I wish Eminem or Snoop or Dre rolled into one of them. That would have kind of been an alley thing.
That would have been dope.
Yeah, but I mean, I know the production only got about 13 minutes, so they had to get in Mary J. They had to get in 50. They only got so much time because everybody's like, well, where's Warren G? Where's the game? I'm like, guys, they got 13 minutes.
Right. You can't bring like 15 rappers in there. It don't work very well.
No, they gotta get through the show. So that was pretty awesome. Again, like I said, it's very ironic because, as you know, Ani, during the pandemic, like the cost of living in LA is just going through the roof. I'm sure the cost of living in Texas is going up. It's going up all over the country. But it's like, guys, we've been telling you that, this is good music. This is this music should be embraced more. And it's crazy that it took this long to get a true hip hop show on the halftime of the Super Bowl.
Yeah. When I started looking at the kind of the history and just kind of looking back, I was like, man, this is the first one.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this was like long overdue. Like you said, man, this happened like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. All those songs would have been out already.
Right.
They're singing, Still Dre Day. I mean, that's all 20 years old.
California Love,
California Love, 25 years old.
Right.
And In the Club is now almost 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
50's first album is almost basically 20 years old now.
Right.
It's going to be 20 years old this year or right into early 223. So put you on the spot. What is the biggest, is In the Club the biggest rap song of your time, or is there a bigger song? What's the biggest rap song of all time?
Ooh,
or your era, at least?
In the Club is close.
Yeah.
Man.
Is there a bigger rap song out there than that? And I'll let you think about it, and I'll say why I asked that. Is people are saying, well, why is 50 out there? He's not from California. This is Super Bowl's at SoFi. I'm like, guys, Dr. Dre's founded him.
Yeah.
And not only that, In the Club is the biggest rap song of the last 25 years. Dr. Dre's smart for bringing that dude out. Like, who cares if he's not from LA? That's the biggest song going.
Yeah, I had to say In the Club, like,
yeah.
I can't even think of a bigger one. Like, I'm thinking of Dre.
The last 20 years. What's bigger in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
I like The Way You Move by Outkast. But that's not.
It's not bigger. It's not bigger.
It's not bigger than In the Club.
In the Club, when it came on, was huge.
Everywhere.
Like, the radio played it like 10 times a day.
Every hour. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
it was the exposure was so big. The buildup was big because you heard about this rapper who got shot. Who's this guy from New York that got shot and he's gonna drop an album and he's Dr. Dre's protege, And that's another thing. When I watched that show, I thought it was Dr. Dre's show. Like, it's very interesting that Ice Cube wasn't there because everybody besides Mary J is up there because of Dr. Dre.
Right. Yeah.
Snoop. K. Dot. All of them. Eminem. Eminem is the biggest selling hip hop artist of all time. Yeah. That's pretty nuts to think about that Dr. Dre left Death Row with nothing.
And he
created a company that was worth $250 million. So he owns half that company. I mean, he could, technically speaking, he was really, that was half of his company with Suge Knight. And it's like, he left it with nothing. And now his buddy owns it. That's
right. And he left that with nothing. And he told him to keep everything.
That's crazy. Who would do that? Like,
everything, and he was like, I'm good, I got it.
I don't want that. I'm not associated with that no more. Yeah. And that's a nutty story in itself. Because now he's its own billionaire with obviously the Beach by Dre and some other things he's done, but also finding Eminem.
Yeah.
Discovering Eminem, and 50 Cent has a bit, like you said, has the biggest song of the last 20 years.
Yeah, like In the Club was. I mean, I was a kid, and I was just like, man, like I remember it was just
Everywhere.
everywhere, and I loved
Yeah.
the song, but I was
Yeah.
like, I got tired of it quick because that's
Yeah.
all they played. But I mean,
That's
it's the biggest song in the past 20 years. I had to think of it. I was
Yeah.
like, nothing that big, especially.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I like Rock This Way with Aerosmith and Run DMC. I thought that was a groundbreaking hip hop song.
Mhm.
Not sure it's bigger than, maybe more have historical importance than In the Club, but I mean, it's not bigger necessarily.
Right.
Obviously, Sugar Hill Gang, the hip hop to the hippity
Mhm.
hip, but that's more like starting. That's a great song. That's still a top 5 to 10 song in hip hop,
Right.
no doubt,
Right.
no doubt.
Oh,
There's a few others we're not thinking about, but yeah, that was a great show. But back to the game as we close this pod out, and I want to let you get out of here soon because we got a lot to do this week. Some things that I thought I saw. Did you think Aaron Donald should have been the MVP of the game, or are you happy with and satisfied with Cooper Kupp getting the MVP for what he did on the last drive?
I'm satisfied with Cooper. I thought
Okay.
Aaron Donald deserved it. That was
Yeah.
such a defensive game.
Yeah.
It was funny. I have a little story. So, like, obviously, I was watching the game with my girlfriend, but her granddad kept saying defense wins championships. He was saying that all before the game. Like, I'm like,
You're like, I know, Gramps, I know.
I'm like, what's old man talking about? Like, I know. But like, just the way how it was becoming like an offensive game, you felt like it was gonna be a high scoring game, and just really how Aaron Donald was just was such a force inside, and just like how the Rams defense just killed a lot of Cincinnati's just offensive like momentum and flow. I mean, I thought he deserved it. They couldn't guard Cooper at all. So I'm satisfied with that. But man, Aaron Donald was a beast. Like he really had game. And now I'm like, I guess that's why Grandpa was saying defense was championship. Like, did he know what was about to happen? Like,
he must have watched a lot of football over the years. He knows what's going on.
Right.
So like you mentioned, that pickup of Von Miller on that trade was big. So they had 6 sacks on Joe Burrow in the second half. The Rams, I mean, are we playing 7-on-7 almost now? The Rams had 30 yards rushing. We've talked about this. The Rams had 30 yards rushing and won the game. Like, it's just the rules are so favored to the offense, So wanted to ask you, put you on the spot a little bit. I like putting you on the spot. You never like putting me on the spot, but I like putting you on the spot. Did Matt Stafford look like a Hall of Fame quarterback to you?
Ooh.
Yeah. He's a number 1 pick. He had some good season in Detroit.
He will be a Hall of
Famer. Yeah.
I don't think he should be a Hall of Famer.
Okay. He didn't look like a Hall of Famer.
He didn't look like a Hall of Famer. He didn't look like one.
Yeah. His numbers are going to get him in there for sure.
100%. But he didn't look like one, and especially now you won the Super Bowl for sure. But I didn't think he looked like one. Just thinking of like Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the past and how they looked. I know both defenses were good, like even like Eli Manning and Tom Brady. I think Pat Mahomes is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Then you just keep going down the list. I mean, he was okay. Obviously,
he did his job.
He did his job. I thought the defense really carried him. I wouldn't say he's he didn't look like a Hall of Famer, but he made the plays he needed to make to win the game.
Yeah. And he's a franchise quarterback. He's a number 1 pick. He was a number 1 pick for a reason. So I'm with you on that. I do want to mention some things to kind of show you why he's probably going to make the Hall of Fame. Is Matt Stafford had 3 game-winning drives in the playoffs. The Rams basically gave up a lot to win this Super Bowl this year. Obviously, they were trying to win it right now, right here, kind of like the Nets or 76ers, Lakers. They think they're going to win right now.
Right.
That's what they're planning on. But obviously, the Rams are doing a lot better moves than the Lakers. But that's for another day. But so Stafford is 5th all-time in fourth quarter comebacks. What I didn't really know before the Super Bowl, in his 13 seasons in the NFL, he's only had a running back go over 100 yards, rush for 100 yards 12 times. This is the craziest stat I've heard. In 2016, the Lions won 9 games. Okay, we know how bad the Lions are. I'm glad you're not a Lions fan. I'm glad you're from Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, they won 9 games.
Wow.
Yeah, they won 9 games. 8 of those were Stafford fourth quarter comebacks. So they're leading rusher that season in 2016 when they made the playoffs. The Lions had 357 yards. So it's like, dude, this guy is he's the number 1 pick for a reason. He's doing well. I mean, he made the throws on the last drive. Cooper Kupp was great. I could talk about Cooper Kupp a lot, but I don't want to. That's the details of that are not. I think we're in a pass happy area, so all the numbers are inflated. It's kind of like the juice era in MLB baseball for the sluggers. Like some of these, Rafael Primero and Jason Giambi, some of these numbers are inflated a little bit. I mean, the receiving numbers are out of control. Like I said, the Rams rushed 30 yards and still won the game. So, but I wanted to get some background because I've been living here in LA, and we'll wrap up the show. The Rams were in St. Louis for 21 years. It was like, wow, I didn't realize how quickly that passed by. But when I was in high school, the Rams were in bad financial shape when they went to St. Louis. And to leave St. Louis, they had to settle a lawsuit for $790 million. So even though they got that Super Bowl with the greatest show on turf, they paid a price. The Rams aren't scheduled to have a first-round pick for 7 years because, again, they mortgaged everything to try to win now. So between 224 and the 7 years prior, they haven't had a first-round pick. They've been trading them. They get Von Miller, Matt Stafford, and it paid off. Again, you're trying to make a imprint. You're trying to get fans in LA to come to this new stadium and to be behind you because they're still Raiders fans, and there's a lot of 49ers fans and some Chargers fans. But the Rams try to win now. They knew they couldn't win. Oh, we're going to try to win 10 years from now. No, they got to win now, which they did. And they traded Jared Goff for 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder for Stafford. So like you said, they put it on the line now, and they got it done. Again, we'll see what happens in the future. What were you thinking about? I want to ask you this question because I like asking you these type of questions to get you thinking. Is there was no flags, and all of a sudden there was all these flags at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the NFL or the NBA is more controlled by the officials?
I think the NFL.
Yeah,
I think the NFL. That was what was it, 3rd down when they made the pass to Cup?
Yeah,
and they called a holding. I thought that was a questionable one. I think down the stretch, I think it gets way more controlled. I think in the NBA, they just kind of let it, especially
it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Like in the playoffs and the finals. I mean, other than 2006, I'm a huge Mavs fan. I'm still mad about this day about how Dwayne Wade got to the free throw line 50,000 times. But generally, they let you play. But in NFL, I feel like it's more controlled, especially down the stretch. You see more. They get tighter with calls, which is
And in this game, that was obvious. They got way tighter on that last drive. So again, that leads to people saying, "Oh, they wanted the Rams to win at home because the Rams are in the franchise trying to build up." So I get that, and it's controlled a lot. You're right. Going back to that finals in 2006, after I came back from the All-Star game and watching in Houston, watching that finals. So up 2-0. Again, if they don't get those calls in game 3, they go down 3-0, the series is over. And Dirk has 2 titles. D Wade has what? Only 2?
2. Yeah, 2.
Instead of 3. Changes a lot of things. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about Dirk and D Wade and these guys on a future pod. This D Wade is the 3rd best shooting guard of all time. I'm just like, oh God, we'll talk about that.
Right, yeah,
we'll talk about that because we know who number 1 is. We know who number 2 is, and there's a difference between number 1 and 2, and there's a big difference between whoever 2 and 3 is. So, so we'll talk about that. But for now, I think we'll wrap it up. Obviously, the Super Bowl was crazy. We had a long weekend and a busy Monday and a busy Tuesday morning as you're listening to this. Again, State Champions Invitational, April 7th through 9th. New event. Go to ballislife.com. Read all about it. But until then, I think me and Ani are wrap this one up. Episode 117. Until next time, we appreciate you guys logging on, watching on YouTube, subscribing to our Ballislife Podcast Network. Make sure to check out Roosh and Noble, Buckets and Breakdowns, the other ones. Go to ballslife.com and check out all the action. But until next time, me and Ani and Ronnie are logging off.